So now we have reached a level of understanding where we feel comfortable to move on to the next step, which is solution searching using solver. Okay, so as you can see, the left hand side we have a scratch paper. We have in the right hand side we have Excel. So it's always important to try to make sense of the problem first before you move on to Excel. That will save you huge amount of time. Trust me. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's take a look. So there's no specific format that you have to adhere to when you're trying to work this with Excel. Okay, there's no such thing as universal format of Excel setup where that you can use to solve this type. No, there's no. You just need to set up in a way that makes sense to you and in a way that helps your understanding the most. So, but in general, there are just three big components, like we saw earlier in this part. One is the parameter and decision variables. The second is the objective functions and whether to minimize, maximizing it. Number three is usually the constraints. Okay, if you can try to reconstruct that part, at least understand which cell deals with which of the components, that will be really helpful. So I'm just going to write down parameters first. So chicken and liver, and you have a A, you have a B, of course AB meaning the nutrient, and it's 1, 1, 4, 2. Okay, so now I'm also putting the cost for each. So 1, 2. Those are all known parameters. All known parameters. And it looks like in this problem it will be easier just to put decision variables here because it will be easier to take advantage of sum product function. So these two are decision variables, meaning these are x1 x2 because you can't say x1 x2, so I'm just gonna use the green color to highlight the decision variables. And now you know we have parameters and we have decision variables, and our objective function is really the total cost. The total cost is sum product of this and this, right? 1 multiplied by the quantity of chicken plus 2 multiplied by the quantity of liver. Okay, that is it. And because we didn't put anything here, it will return 0. You can try to enter anything arbitrarily, any arbitrary quantity here, just to see whether this calculation works here. Of course, this is calculated cell, even though this is maximum, even though this is the objective function. Since this is a calculated cell, I'd like to use the yellow color to highlight all the calculated cells. So I think the last step is to figure out what is the constraints, right? Those are constraints. Constraints. So we know we talk about 3 different constraints. Number 1 being nutrient A constraint, nutrient B constraint. Let me go up here to fix this. We also have constraints for liver flavor. It's only constraint added to liver flavor. There's no constraint over the chicken flavor. All right. So your total number of units of nutrient A should not be less than 40. So that's sum product here and here. This should not be less than 40, I believe. Okay. What else? So here, for the nutrient B, this should not be any less than, any less than 60. Okay, and then the third constraint is for the liver flavor. For this, I'm just referencing the lever itself. Okay, hope I'm doing this correctly. I don't want to include more than 18. So this is information from the description itself, right? No more than 18. So you don't want to put more than 18. So currently this is obviously violating the constraints, but it's okay because it's just an arbitrary value we put there in order to solve the problem. So yeah, as you can see that there's less amount of struggle because we understood the problem clearly before we move on to Excel. So it's the time we spend there is totally worth it. Now we start to use solver to search the solution. We know the objective function is f6 in here. I'm trying to minimize it, right? And then by changing these two cells, first constraint added, I'm just going to add these two together because they're using the same directionality in terms of they are minimum bound. So they only have a lower bound or the minimum value, right? So both C10 and C11 can be entered in this way. Add. The second constraint here is the lever flavor. So this should be less than or equal to 18, which is correct. So I'm click OK. So I believe, where did it go? I believe I have everything that I need to solve or search the decision variables. Okay, just give it one more review. Blah, blah, blah. And then here it has to be simplex LP. Okay, you don't want to know why not these two. Just go with a simplex LP. Okay, I explained during the class why simplex LP will work the best. Let's keep it simple. Go solve. Okay. So I got this solution. I got this solution as the current optimal solution. Okay, but something doesn't look right, right? Because this is currently 0. So it means 40 chicken with a 0 lever. Well, mathematically, it may make sense. But in terms of business perspective, this doesn't really make sense, right? So it gives us an incentive to go back and take a look what went wrong. Okay, so this is a mistake I made intentionally. All right, so if you review all these parameters, go back and take a look at this. It costs 1 cent to make 1 liver flavored biscuit. Oh, it's 1 cent for liver, not for chicken. So we got these two values flipped. 2 cents to make 1 chicken flavor, right? So we also got it wrong in here. That is why our optimal solution doesn't look very normal. So in this case, just simply switch or revise it and run the solver one more time. Okay, you believe everything will stay as is, nothing else changed. Click say solve. Now we have another solution emerged. Okay, so now it looks like something more normal and more natural looking. So did it violate any constraints? 40, 124, 18, it didn't violate any constraints. Okay, yet we believe this is still our optimal solution. Okay, so this is an example that I've used 2 different videos. The first video I showed you the conceptual understanding part, making sense of what this problem is, what are some of the interrelated parts that you need to use to solve the problem, and we actually spent more than 10 minutes over there. And in this part, Excel solution, had I did not inserted that intentional error part, we may have done this video within like 7 minutes, right? If you don't do those talkings, do it by yourself, maybe you need 3 to 5 minutes at maximum. Okay, so this is it, and hope this video helped.